And Gazans mourned children killed in an airstrike on their home in Jabalia in northern Gaza. Gaza Civil Defense Agency says Israel forces killed 37 people in the war-stricken territory, including at least 9 children who died in strikes. And UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has sharply criticized the United States-backed aid operation in Gaza, calling it inherently unsafe and saying bluntly it is killing people. Now, the operations run by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is supported by Israel and the United States. But still, the UN has refused to participate, citing concerns over neutrality, forced displacement, and the militarization of aid. Now, since limited aid resumed in May, over 400 Palestinians have reportedly died trying to access food. Now, the UN says most were approaching GHF sites. Guterres added that a search for food must never be a death sentence. Israel denies targeting civilians and accuses the United Nations of siding with Hamas. Now, the GHF insists its operations are secure and accuses the UN of spreading falsehoods.
Families have been displaced again and again, and are now confined to less than 1/5 of Gaza's land. And even these shrinking spaces are under threat. Bombs are falling on tents, on families, on those with nowhere left to run. And people are being killed simply trying to feed themselves and their families. The search for food must never be a death sentence.
And for more on this stories, we're joined by Dr. Laskiewicz, who is a Arise International Affairs analyst, to dissect these conversations. Thank you so much, Dr. Marek, for indeed stopping by. Now, let's quickly take a look at issues beginning with Donald Trump and saying that, well, if he understands that the Iranians are still gathering uranium for weapons purpose, that he's going to conduct those strikes again. Now, what exactly have we learned from the previous strikes, and will there be any need for a strike in future?
Well, yes, because despite President Donald Trump's assertion that he completely has wiped out all the nuclear facilities of Iran, it's becoming increasingly clear that is not the case. They managed to move their enriched uranium before the strikes would appear, and moreover, they still have personnel and equipment. So they were damaged, yes. The exact degree of damage varies. Some have said just a few months setback, others think it might be a few years. But what is quite clear is that it certainly has not obliterated them as Donald Trump wanted. As a result, Donald Trump has not ruled out further strikes. And of course, the Iranian spiritual leader Khamenei's speech saying that Iran won the war, the recent war, has inflamed opinion, I think, in the White House. And therefore, it's quite clear that there may well be a resumption of the war.
Quite interesting. Now, earlier today, well, in Tehran, well, we did see that burial ceremony take place. It was a public affair, and of course, it sort of created opportunities for Iranians to come out and then tell us exactly what they felt about the war. And from some of the comments that we hear, well, it's like they are urging the regime on to indeed continue if need be.
Yes, quite. The point is that many Iranians support Iran's stance. It is false to imagine that Khamenei and his entire regime will topple. This is a Western dream. It's the same dream, incidentally, about President Putin. And if you follow the Western media, there's a standard narrative. Everything the West does is correct. All other regimes are bankrupt, incapable, incompetent, repressive, and bound to collapse in a matter of time. Well, for example, President Putin survived over 3 years of war, and there's no obvious reason why Khamenei could not survive as well. The problem he faces is that Iran is far weaker against Israel and USA, so it's unclear what the Iranians have in mind. It all hinges on the talks which are now coming between Iran and USA. Until then, it's speculation, but what has Iran signed up to? As far as one can tell, it still wants to carry enriching uranium to some degree, whereas Israel doesn't want any enrichment, and neither does America, and therefore there would appear sooner or later to be a breakdown of these talks. But to come back to the point, Iran is certainly not on its knees, and its people do to some degree support the regime.
Interesting. And when you take a look at Israel, well, we hear that there is a billboard, indeed, supporting the Abrahamic Accord. And the question for me is, does the existing ceasefire provide any opportunity for Israel and Iran to sit on the table while we are talking about America and Iran? Well, is there any opportunity here? Do things look better than it were, before the last 12 days when the attacks started?
I don't think there's an immediate opportunity for that, because Iran believes that Israel should be literally destroyed. And Israel, of course, does not want to agree with this and wants to see the Iran change its nuclear stance. To say that, therefore, they can meet now is unlikely. What this peace accord means is there is an opportunity for perhaps Israel to mend its relations with other Arab countries. The central problem is that Netanyahu does not appear to have any peace plan for Gaza. And in fact, are constantly, day in, day out, the people dying there or killed by the IDF. There's now the business of Lebanon. And therefore, although there is a billboard which is signaling that Israel is prepared to normalize relations with other Arab countries, not Iran so much as Arab countries, it's not clear the Arab countries will agree whilst Israel carries on the way it's going.
Interesting. And let's quickly touch on Gaza and taking a look at, the carnage that seems to be happening even while people struggle for food. Now, the United Nations have continuously condemned these actions, but it doesn't look like it's ending anytime soon. Well, just earlier today, we hear that the numbers are rising. It could be above 60 people who are scrambling to get food. Well, what exactly seems to be the problem? What seems to be the disconnect between getting food and obviously being killed?
It's by no means clear on what basis the IDF is firing upon people who just want food. They do occasionally say it's to do with Hamas, but even when there's no clear that some of these strikes have targeted, or in fact there was Hamas anywhere hurt by this. What is clear is this shadowy American agency distributing food, there's very little details you can find out about it, is incapable of controlling any sort of Israeli violence. The Israelis are absolutely capable and have full freedom to do as they wish. This key problem is there is no plan of any sort arriving out of Israel of what to do, no peace plan. But then there's nothing new about this. Netanyahu ruled out a two-state deal many, many years ago, and we're still in a situation where, in effect, there is no plan for peace. All there is this endless carnage, which is not going in Israel's favor, because people scrambling for food and being killed is not doing its image very much good at all. Added to which, of course, there's a settler violence on the West Bank. So here, unless Netanyahu, who is a competent war leader, finally manages to cope with something which he has failed to do so before, the peace side of his job, it would appear the killing will go on until something gives way.
And talking about something giving way, have we learned anything? Is there anything, looking back in the last couple of days, particularly since the ceasefire, between Israel and Iran, saying that we might see anything like a ceasefire in Gaza anytime soon?
Well, no, because Netanyahu has no plan. There was talk of ethnic cleansing. The population is now being herded into a very small area, and even then they're not safe. There is no plan suggested at all. The idea of ethnic cleansing fell because the Arab nations refused to play ball and let the Gazans settle on their territory. And so really all that's happening is that every day some Gazans are dying scrambling for food, and there's no likelihood in the immediate future of any sort of change, which is depressing to say the least, unpleasant for the Gazans and useless for the Israelis. But Netanyahu doesn't seem to be able to cope with the idea of any peace proposals from his side.
But Dr. Marek, we can only pray that there is a green light somewhere for some kind of peace, especially in Gaza. Thank you so much, Dr. Marek, who is a Rise International analyst.